everyone, I'm Rachel Poley with Ari Meghlen, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. We're on episode 104, and this week's question is, how do you deal with writing distractions? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss a show. And if you enjoy this episode, please give it a like, write a review, and share it with your friends. It really means a lot. So what exactly are writing distractions? I guess you could define it as anything that is not writing. You could just literally sit down, play video games, read a book. Reading a book is technically a distraction from writing. You can call it research, but we all know the truth.
Feeling really cold out right now. Seriously, so cold out right now.
It's true. As writers, we do anything and everything in our power to do anything except writing. I mean, writing's hard. I don't know why we started this to begin with, but we did it, and here we are. And now we have to deal with writing distractions because let's add more stress onto ourselves. So with all of that said, I'm actually going to say, how do you deal with writing distractions? Don't. I feel like there are sometimes you just need to let the distractions run its course. And because sometimes if you're sitting at your computer and you're trying to bang out some words and they're just not coming to you, go do something else. Take a break. Sometimes that's just a sign that your brain is just not into it or it needs a break. So go ahead and go read a book, go watch a TV show, go do something else, go take a walk, anything else, and just give yourself a break from writing. There are definitely some times when I feel like you're sitting at your computer and you're not writing because an email pops up, or maybe the dog starts barking and you got to take the dog out or something like that. And then by the time you come back in with the dog, you just completely forget about writing, or you get distracted with something else. But I feel like depending on what those distractions are, you kind of need to use your best judgment and decide, do I need a break right now or no? If the answer is no, and you get an email, put your phone on silent, exit out of your email tab. That way, you don't know that you got an email. Who answers emails anymore anyway?
More calling out. Seriously. I know I don't respond to my emails, but geez.
I like how you snapped up. You immediately looked right at the camera and you were like, hey. But yeah, I feel like when something distracts you from your writing, there are times where you just need to let it happen and take a break. And then there are other times where you just kind of need to power through. And when I say power through your writing, I mean, actually, like I said, put your phone on silent, put it away, exit out of the internet, out of all the tabs, and just have your writing up, or grab a notebook and do some handwriting for a little while. Sometimes I feel like a good way to get out of some writing distractions is if you switch up your writing. If you've been staring at the computer screen for too long, it's best to just get a notebook and a pen and start handwriting, or vice versa, depending on how you do things.
I think you can break down writing distractions into categories, because I do love doing that. So you've got the noise distractions, that's your barking dogs, that's your people talking, that's the phone ringing, noises outside. And especially if you are quite sound sensitive, where you're drawn to all these extra noises and it pulls you out of the zone, that can be quite an issue. In situations like that, I would definitely say try and reduce that as much as possible. So, if the dog can be put in a different area of the house or with somebody else, so hopefully it doesn't bark. If you get yourself some noise cancelling headphones, tell people that you're working, put a note on your door so nobody's banging on the door and coming in for no reason. Let's be honest, it's almost always for no reason. Things like that where you can reduce as much of the noise as possible. You've got other things like what you said, where sometimes it's just not flowing and you kind of get angry at sitting in front of the computer and nothing's coming, because then you feel like you're wasting time. And as you said, if you try and power through, sometimes it feels painful, So in that sense, what I would normally do is take myself away from the computer and go analog style. So that's grabbing my papers, grabbing notebooks, index cards or tabs, colored pens, and I would then sort of transport myself to a different location in the house, away from the computer, and make notes. Do some editing, do some world building information, just something. So you're still working on the story, but you're not maybe writing the story. Because sometimes that's just enough. If you're struggling to get through the writing, just putting yourself into a different location, doing something a little different can help. Definitely, maybe, I don't know. And as you said with the email, seriously, totally called out, because I am horrific with answering the email. I open it and I look at the email and I read the email, and then I get stressed about that I have to do something with the email, and I close it and pretend it didn't happen and repeat all the time. So my email box often has over 300 emails in it. But I digress. If you've got your email bleeping, if you've got that social media itch where you can't stop going and just checking and refreshing, and has anyone commented on my new post, blah, blah, blah. I believe people have that. I don't actually have that, but I know that can be a thing. Definitely turn your phone off or put your phone in a different room. You know, if you don't really need it, if you want music, put it on your computer, you know, use some other form of thing. Don't always have it on your phone, and switch off the internet. If I really want to get something done, and I have got a habit of like, you know, I'll just research this thing, and then down the rabbit hole I go, I will shut the internet off on my computer so that I can just work on the story. And even if I want to click onto something, it's like I'd have to go downstairs and mess with the router. I'm not talking knock it off on your computer where it just takes a button to put it back on again. I'm talking go down and knock it off the router so that you can't access it, and you'd have to get up off your ass and go down and put it back on. And let's be honest, we're all lazy. Nobody wants to do that. You're more likely to sit and actually write then. I say that, I don't know how often that would work for me. I've done it a few times, but then something important will come up and I'll have to go down. But yeah, it's I think it's identifying what the distractions are, especially the main distractions in your life. You know, is it people knocking on the door and coming in, or just coming in? Is it pets barking? Is it falling down the rabbit hole? At least if you identify them, you should be able to find sneaky ways to fix them, I think, maybe.
I'm only laughing because you mentioned how, like, you know, we don't want to get up off our asses and like go turn the router off and things like that. You know what a big distraction for me is? Myself. I will be in the middle of a sentence and my brain's like, you should get up. And I get up and I pace and I just wander around the upstairs for like 10 minutes before I stop, and I'm like, what just happened? What am I doing? And then I go back to my computer and I like start doing it again. And like I don't know why. I'll just like all of a sudden I'll be in the middle of work, and it's not just writing, like this is like answering emails or doing my actual work. I'll just randomly get up and start wandering around. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. My brain is just like, you should do this. And I'm like, okay, let's go take a quick walk and just pace back and forth between my office and my bedroom. And just, yeah, that's what I do. So it's like you get up and get the router. Okay, well, my router's in the kitchen. So guess what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go downstairs, turn the router off, and get a snack. And then it'll take me like a half hour to go back up the stairs.
If you got like restlessness or something, it's like you can't sit for maybe you need a standing desk and like a step machine or a little treadmill under the desk so you can be walking while you're writing and you don't have to feel the urge.
Desk. That's the thing.
Do you use it?
Yeah, I do. I use it all the time. And I still like, for some reason, I just can't stay in the one spot. I got to get up and start walking around. It's the weirdest thing.
I mean, to be fair, any form of exercise like that is good. It gets the blood rushing to your brain and it can give you more ideas.
It does, so yeah.
Maybe you need a dictation machine. So as you're walking off, you can be dictating your story.
I've tried that before and they never understand me. I don't know if I talk too fast or if I'm just because I'm American, so I just don't talk right. I don't know. When you mentioned about how instead of like, if you're getting distracted by stuff or you feel like you can't actually write, to go edit or write notes or do something like that, I do agree with that. And I do that a lot, but I will admit that there is that fine line where you can go down that rabbit hole of research and editing and things like that. And I don't know about you, but there are times where I'll be in the middle of book 1 and then I have an idea for book 2. So I'm like, screw book 1, let's start writing book 2. And then that's a whole nother set of problems. So I guess in a way, your writing can actually be a distraction itself. So this episode is just a smorgasbord of crap, because how do you define a writing distraction? A distraction is literally anything and everything, including writing itself. So the main thing is you kind of need to know where that fine line is when it's becoming a distraction and when it's actually pushing your work forward.
I think there's little things you can do to help reduce writing distractions. Having an idea of what you're writing on the day you're writing helps. So if you're going into your writing session on a Monday and you know that you're working on chapter 2 and it's the inciting incident has just happened and X, Y, and Z has got to happen, that's what you're working on. So having a plan to say, right, this session, I am going to be working on this one scene, this one chapter between this character, and this overall arc. That can help, because then you're not going to sort of sit around thinking, and while you're thinking, you're like, oh, the bookshelf needs changing. I'm going to tidy that. And, oh, I didn't open the mail. I might just go and do that. So kind of catching yourself by having a plan. Removing as many distractions as possible. Obviously, I mentioned taking out the internet and getting your noise cancelling headphones and trying to stop people from coming in and annoying you. Set up a routine, a ritual, if you will. Are you the sort of person, Rachel, who goes out and gets a snack or grabs the millionth cup of coffee? So go and start before you sit down to the session. Get yourself a coffee or some snacks, or get a thermos full so that you don't have to leave the desk. Make sure you've got all the tools you're going to need. This is my issue. Glasses, because I actually have a different pair of glasses I need to use for the computer, and it's never in the frigging room that I do my writing. So I end up wearing the wrong glasses again. Eye ache. So that's something that I need to put into my writing ritual. Before you sit down, have I got a brew? Have I got my snacks? Have I put my note on the door telling everyone to piss off? Have I got my glasses? Do I have my pens? Where are my notes? And they're all set up, or they should be set up. That way, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm just going to go and find my glass. I'm just going to go and find that pen I always use. And then, swept up by somebody needed you, or the cat needed feeding, or, the post needs opening, or any other distraction that grabs you because we've got like the attention span of a gnat. So I think that can help, creating a bit of a ritual and things you always need. Do you need notepads? Do you need cards? Do you need printer ink and paper at hand? Don't put it in another room. Put it in the room, in the area you're going to be using it at. Things like that. Don't open multiple tabs. Have a set time on your computer. I mean, I think there's a program you can do it where it locks you out of things, so you physically can't go and access Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff because it locks them. I am saying this while thinking that's true. I don't know if it is. If it is, we'll put details in the description. If not, Rachel can cut all this out.
I've actually never heard of that, so I don't know. But I was going to mention earlier about setting a timer for yourself. If you find yourself getting distracted, try to set a timer, even if it's for 5 minutes, and just say, okay, I need to concentrate for 5 minutes and start writing or editing or whatever you're currently working on. And also the environment. You mentioned about how getting all of the things that you need and, sit down and have your coffee or your tea or whatever and have your note up on the door. But also on the other hand of it, changing up your environment can help as well. I notice a lot of times in my office, I sit at my desk every single day and I write. And then there are some days all of a sudden, I just find myself not getting any work done. So I'll go over and I'll sit on the couch with my laptop. And for some reason, just moving from one side of the room to the other makes a huge difference. I don't know why. But then again, I pace around the rooms. So maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I think there are so many different ways that you can go about it. And as Ari mentioned earlier about categorizing what your distractions are. Is the distraction something, totally random, like the dog barking? Or is it something that just can't be helped, like your emails, or maybe somebody called you and they're like, hey, we need you real quick. And like, because sometimes like things happen, like family emergencies happen. You can have a routine all you want. And that's actually one of the issues that I've had with routines, is that every time I get into one and I have my day scheduled, something always happens. And it's usually something that I can't control and that I have to deal with right away. So I need to hit the pause button on my writing and I need to go deal with that. And then by the time you get the chance to sit back down and do your writing, well, the motivation's gone. You forget what you were doing. And sometimes it's just easier to start fresh the next day. And that's not always a bad thing. Writing distractions can be a huge pain in the ass, but there are days where sometimes you just need to step back and be like, okay, if I'm getting distracted too much, if it's too easy for me to get distracted, then maybe I need a break.
I think we also have to mention something which people aren't always happy about. There's writing distractions, like if you're sound sensitive and there's a lot of noise and you need to work around that and things like that. Or I said, like interruptions that you have no control over and all sorts. There's also the intentional procrastination, because that's what happens. We all do procrastination in different ways, and sometimes you can find yourself doing it a lot. When that happens, you need to ask yourself, is it because you're stuck, or is it because you've lost heart in the writing project? Now, it could be that you're stuck and there's some issues in the story that's making it harder to come out. If you've got a block or an obstacle that you can't get around, or a giant plot hole that you've fallen into, that needs to be something. That's something that you need to address and you need to work around, whether it's using other writers and critique partners to help you get over that. If it means replotting the whole story, or if you're a pantser, actually plotting it, see if you can figure a way around it, spending some time away from the actual writing to work on your plot. The other side is maybe it's not that you're stuck, but you've lost interest in the story. It's not catching you. And let's be honest, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not enjoying writing it, you're probably not going to enjoy reading it. And if you're not going to enjoy reading it, nobody else is. In the end, you need to have a lot of passion for your story. And if you don't have that, that is a problem. But I think as writers, we kind of get trapped in this idea that especially if you've put a lot of work in, the idea of letting it go, even to put it aside, it can be really hard. It's like, well, I've put so much effort in, I might as well like drag myself through it. But what happens instead is you procrastinate and you procrastinate and you procrastinate because you don't want to deal with it, because you're not really enjoying it, but you don't want to let it go. So you have this kind of limbo, doing nothing, floating moment. And all it is wasting time. This is not a get out of jail free card saying, well, put it aside and go and start a new project, because that is shiny object syndrome. And that is not good. Mainly because me and Rachel both suffer from that. We do like our new projects. But it is something you sometimes have to think about. Have you stopped writing? Are you pulled into distractions a lot easier because you're maybe unconsciously not interested in writing that story? And is it because there's an issue that needs working on the story, or that it's just gone from you? Doesn't have to be all the time. Doesn't have to be something that's like, that's it, you'll never write it again. But it might be one of those projects that's just needs to be put on the back burner for a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, and put your heart into something else. Again, if that's all you're doing, like you literally write and then shove it on the back burner and then start something else, and shove it on the back burner and start something else, and you have a back burner full of projects, that is also an issue. So yeah, just a little bit of food for thought.
I appreciate how this episode is us just telling everybody how we're doing everything wrong. If you're writing, you're doing it wrong. If you're not writing, you're doing it wrong. If you're pacing around the room, you're doing it wrong. I said you're not doing it wrong. That's the only thing acceptable. Pacing around the room. Oh, if you're surfing the internet doing research to progress your novel, you're doing it wrong. Long story short, we're doing everything wrong. No, but seriously though, if you're getting too distracted from your writing, the first step is to figure out the cause as to why you're getting distracted. Ari just brought up an excellent point. Sometimes you just need a break from that particular story, or your heart's not in it anymore, and that's not a bad thing. You can always go back to it later. But as writers, we come up with ideas all the time, and we have to sort through them. And if you get an idea, you got to write it down. Otherwise, you're going to forget about it. And that could be your next bestseller. You never know. But otherwise, do your best to have a routine, a writing routine, and sit down, set yourself a timer, try to fight the timer, try to race the timer, and give yourself some time to like really hyper focus on whatever you're working on. But just remember to give your book some TLC. And so whenever you feel like you're getting like too distracted from your novel, if it's something that is as little as an email or something else, the telephone's ringing, but it's not important, it's not important, it's your book's time. Like think of it as like an appointment. You have an appointment with your book and you need to give it its undivided attention. With all that said, we're going to turn it over to you guys. What are your methods for dealing with writing distractions? Because I don't even know if Ari and I helped. So we'd love to chat about it and tell us your answers in the comments below. But if you want to get some more of the Merry Writer podcast, then be sure to follow us on Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And for as little as $1 a month, you can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Merry Writer Podcast for bonus content. It helps keep the show going, so we really appreciate the support. But in the meantime, tune in every Wednesday for a new episode of the Merry Writer Podcast, where we ask all the right questions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Scraps of Paper. We have notes everywhere. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.